We are very fortunate to have Lani Muelrath here this evening. Lani is an award-winning teacher, author, and speaker well known for her expertise in plant-based, active, mindful living. Sorry. She is certified in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University and a recipient of the California Golden Apple Award for Excellence in Instruction. She is also guest lecturer at San Francisco State University and associate faculty at Youth College. Lani has also served as presenter and consultant for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and the Complete Health Improvement Project. Lani is the author of 2 books, The Plant-Based Journey, a step-by-step guide to transition to a healthy lifestyle, and Achieving Your Ideal Weight, and Fit Quickies, 5-minute targeted body-shaping workouts. Featured on and in at ABC TV, CBS TV, NPR, Prevention Magazine, USA Today, the Saturday Evening Post, and more. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lani Muelrath. Thank you, Lani.
I can't say I haven't prepared for my work, huh? Thank you so much for the introduction. I am so happy to be here tonight, even more than I was 24 hours ago. Yesterday I got my presentation all together for you, and I went today. Can't hear me? Is it too loud? Okay, so let's do, before I continue telling my story, so let's just start it, and then it wouldn't have mattered if we would have been ready to go. How does that sound? Okay, as I said, I'm so excited to be here tonight because yesterday, as I was preparing my show, I thought, well, I'll just get up in the morning and load it up into my flash drive so I can put it in the computer. And of course, that would be the day that you have a massive computer crash, right? So I believe and hope that I have been able to piece together what I had prepared for you. But you know what? I've taught 6th grade for 20 years. And when you teach that long, you're prepared for anything. That's why none of this phases me. You can count on the computer's not working, the electricity doesn't work, the water doesn't work, the door's locked. We're all just big 6th graders anyway. So anyway, thank you for your patience in our getting started today. Another reason I'm excited about coming tonight is because I can't believe what a movement, a forward movement you have created with this program in Woodland. I think it's very visionary. The guests that you've had in the lineup this spring, and the whole idea moving forward, and that you've had such a good turnout for this. And I'm just, you have the doctors and the dietitians and the psychologists, and I am here with you tonight in the role of behavior change specialist. So what does that mean? Sometimes when you find out, here's the problem and here's the solution, is there at times a little gap between, getting full activation? So the doctors and the dietitians give us all the information about plant-based living and plant-based nutrition and what exactly that might be good for giving us nutrition. But connecting that with your life and with your reality is where I come in. And that is what the plant-based journey is all about. And that's what I am excited to share with you. I discovered that there are 5 universal steps of transition to sustainable plant-based living. 5 universal steps, and I'll tell you how I came about them, to a sustainable lifestyle change. You know what that means, right? It means it's something that lasts. I'm not interested in someone who loses 50 pounds in 6 months and 2 years later they're still struggling with it. I'm looking for lasting health change. So before I go any further, what I'd like to do is find out, is there anyone in the room tonight? Can you hear me okay?
No.
See? This is do you want to upgrade? First class is up here, so I'm going to have to move this.
Say I'm not ready. It's like
Where does it? I'm not ready.
I'm not ready.
Oh, okay.
Tough
Good
decision.
morning, guys. Should we do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. Okay, see, doesn't face us, no big deal. So is there anyone in the room who has not heard of plant-based diet or plant-based nutrition? Everyone here has had some awareness of that before coming here? All right, so right off the bat, there's something that we all have in common. Something that you heard, or someone that you talked to, or something that you read has inspired you to open your heart and your mind to looking at your life in its most fundamental way with what you put on your plate and in terms of a plant-based diet. Is that fair to say, everybody? Good. What I'd like you to do is I want you to think back to that moment. Reach back into your past when that first became across your awareness. Someone you talked to, something you read, something you heard, brought this idea to your attention. Maybe it was a long time ago, maybe it was this week when you were at the newspaper, maybe it was a health crisis that someone suggested to you. So can everyone find that spot? Find it? Okay, what I'd like to do now, and you don't have to raise your hand, I want someone whose story I don't know, you don't even have to raise your hand, just come up here and in 10 or 15 seconds tell what your moment of awakening was for looking at your lifestyle in this way. Anybody? Just pop right on it. You don't have to raise your hand. Yay!
Yeah, well, I was actually being a vegetarian back in the 90s, but I sort of reawakened my interest last year. I came across a guy by the name of Rich Roll. He has a podcast, and he introduced me to the word plant-based. So I became plant-based again last summer.
So how did you come across Rich Roll? Who's heard of Rich Roll? He's the ultra athlete. How did you encounter him?
He wrote a book called Finding Ultra.
Yeah, so you saw him in the bookstore?
Yeah, I saw him.
Okay, fantastic. So that was your moment of awakening. What's your name?
Steve.
Oh, Steve. Well, wait. I want to thank you for helping with my lesson today. So be sure that I sign up for you later, okay? Thank you, Steve. So we've all had that commonality, and you have all just done the first step of transition to plant-based living. You have to have that step, right? Without having the idea, having it occur to you, you're not even going to embark on any change. So this is a universal. As we go through, what I'm going to do is go through the 5 steps, and I go into them in great depth in the book, and tell you a little bit about each of the steps, and also give you some real takeaways so that you can apply some things right away. And I told you that these 5 steps were universal. You want to hear how I came up with them? Okay. Well, the thing is that I told you I'm a teacher, and I have been coaching and training people in this transition for a good 10, 15 years. And I've been eating a vegetarian diet for 42 years, although it's transitioned more to whole food plant-based during that time. So that is 2 resources for coming up with the universal steps for sustainable change to plant-based nutrition. And I also surveyed over 1,200 people while I was preparing the manuscript for this book. And I asked them the question. These are people who have had a successful, sustained change. What do you wish you had known when you got started? What would you like to tell someone else that would make their transition easier? And what would you wish that you could tell people as they're moving forward? In other words, what's your advice book? And that is when I collected all of this information, and it all fell into those 5 universal stages. So it all started with awakening. So everyone has a different awakening. There's 3 primary ways that people are awakened to this change, the research tells us. One of those is in terms of health and your weight or any other health crisis. For me, that was one of my drivers. Patty, you want to turn the front lights off again? Thank you. People look at me now and they tell me it's hard to believe that I had a weight problem, but I did. That's me on the left. It doesn't help that everybody else in the picture is very skinny. But I was one of those people born with a predisposition to easily gain and have a hard time losing weight. Maybe some of you can relate to that. I'm the one on the right. I was always filled my t-shirts out well. Beautiful blonde hair, but so it has been a challenge for me for most of my life to find that balance. And now we have just just to show you a little bit on the change. So this picture on the left was taken almost 20 years ago. So I told you I was a vegetarian for a long time, right? But for a good, at least 20 years of that time, my weight was up and down because I really didn't understand about whole foods, plant-based, and how to put it together with what I call the 3 pillars of success, which is food, and fitness, and frame of mind. I think all 3 of those are essential. And unless you get them in balance, you're going to be a little bit lopsided. You heard about my credentials in fitness, so it's not like I didn't have the knowledge, but application of these 3 in a good system were a little bit beyond my reach. But when I found them, I was determined to put a book together about them, and that's what I've written for you. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the health challenges coming out through as we move through the steps, but I wanted to start out with a snapshot of the primary reasons that people select this way of eating as a lifestyle choice. So health and weight. Another is for the lot of animals. Maybe you have recognized Jean Bauer from Farm Sanctuary. Has anyone been up to Woodland to see the Farm Sanctuary up there? Yes. This is where they take animals who have, either they're downed on the ranch or they need some kind of intervention or help, and they take the animals and they live their lives out on the farm. But the lot of animals is what draws a lot of people to the plant-based diet. It's neck and neck with the health and weight issue because there is so much that these creatures are enduring and suffering on the behalf of us, putting on our plates what we want. And I go into these details in the book just enough to really give you an overview and picture about the hormone injections in animals, how they're bred to be big, long, faster than they should be in their lifetimes, in their lifestyle, so that they can get on our plates faster. The problems with the cows and the dairy, but it really is an issue. And for many people, this is just what inspired them to make a change. And the third reason is for environmental reasons. Now, up to a couple months ago, everyone could relate to the drought. Not so much anymore because we've had so much rain. But animal agriculture is the biggest impact for environmental degradation that we have. For example, 50% of all of the land water in our country goes to the feeding and sustaining of livestock animals. Now you might be thinking, oh come on, cows don't drink that much. But it includes all of the water that goes into growing the crops to feed them. And we all know that it takes like 16 to 30 pounds of grains to make 1 pound of beef. Can I be honest with you?
Yes.
I'm glad you're in the front row. I got my tech guy and my yes person. I have a booklet in my library dated 1973. Okay, now this is going to start getting my goat a little bit. And in that booklet, it's titled Meat on the Menu, Who Needs It? And in that book, it goes through the problems to our health for eating our loads of animal products, as we tend to in our country. It talks about the lot of the animals and what they are enduring for our pleasure. And it talks about environmental degradation from animal agriculture. 1973. These issues have just gotten more serious and more accelerated. So it's not new news, it's old news. And the reason I have Susie and James Cameron, you recognize them? James Cameron, the Titanic director, and his wife Susie Amos Cameron are movers and shakers in the environmental movement and have gone to a plant-based diet to support that. They created a school in Southern California that just went all plant-based in their food services last September. But they have been a big support to me in this project. Very generous with their name. They don't give their names out to everybody. They wrote a wonderful endorsement of the book and have been very available to me for this project. And I like that connection because there's voices for the environment. And another thing to tell you about me is my husband and I have traveled the world over for 30 or 40 years working on volunteer projects for wildlife all over the world, which has given us a chance to be up close and personal with some of the things that are happening to the environment that is affecting our wildlife. So these are the primary reasons that people switch to plant-based. So that's the first step, awakening. You gotta have your awakening, whatever has brought you to it. Then, once you're awakened to the idea, the second step is you become a scout. You put on your hat, and you get your magnifying glass, and you put your backpack on, and you find out what is in a plant-based diet. What does plant-based living look like? What do you eat? What do you try to move off of your plate? I go into this in great depth in the Scout Journey in the chapter so that you know exactly what. And I've just put a few key bullet points here and put a picture here so you can see food. You know, people, you have to, and you've probably started to enjoy this. One of the exciting things about this lifestyle change is the food is so good, so enjoyable. You open your world to a whole new world of taste. Who got snacks as they came in? Good, those are all recipes from the plant-based journey, the pumpkin muffins, the chili, the sweet bean cream. And I want to thank the team, Patty and Dana, and who else baked? Sylvia, everyone, they prepared the food for you. And I hope you enjoyed that, gave you kind of a little bit of taste. I didn't have any oil or even sugars in those recipes. I sweetened the items with dates. So that's the thing about whole food, and hang on because we're going to talk more about the benefits of whole food for several reasons. So first you're going to know what the 5 food groups are. I call them 5, some people call them 4, but you've got your vegetables and your fruits and whole grains and starchy vegetables. I kind of call those the starchies because they kind of feel that robust part. And beans and nuts and seeds. And I have this all laid out in the book for you, and I've also given a suggestion amount about how much of each to have each day. I know sometimes the plant-based doctors, and if you've been doing some reading, you've probably come across this. They'll say, it doesn't matter what you eat, as long as you eat from a variety of plant foods, you'll get everything you need. Have you heard that? Has anybody heard that? And, well, even if that's true, it's kind of a tall order, isn't it? That's a big building to leap off of. When we grew up with the 4 food groups, and remember the plate with a glass of milk and a piece of meat, and it was, of course, it was all funded by the 4 food lobbies. But it's kind of, to extract yourself from that can be a tall order. So what I have done is created a meal planner to help you incorporate that. Also in the Scout chapter, I have information about the process continuum and a good news guide to hunger satisfaction. You know what that means to me? How to be full without being fat. That was in fact the holy grail for me was how can I do that? It didn't seem like my hunger signals were wrong or faulty. How could that be? There must be some way I can meet that natural need to satisfy hunger without having to struggle with my weight. Doesn't that seem reasonable to you? And look at that means too. Also, is your kitchen ready? Is it ready for you to go? Do you have knives to cut with? Do you have just a simple pot and pan? It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need all the expensive equipment. There's just a few essentials to get in place. And then also, how do you plantify your pantry? Plantify. Make it become more planty? Okay, so what I wanted to do, I promised that I would give you some specific lessons that you have to take away with you. And I want to go back to the Good News Guide to Hunger Satisfaction. This is where whole plant foods meet the need of satisfying your hunger without you having to fight excess avoirdupois all the time. And you may know what I'm talking about. If you struggle with your weight, this will be just good news to you all over the place. I'd like to tell you about 3 rules I call them 3 rules of satiety. You know what satiety is, right? It's like, you've had enough and it kind of carries you a little bit to the next meal. There are many, many reasons that we reach fullness or satiety, many that we probably have yet to discover, but there are 3 that we know definitely for sure about. And one of those is what's called the stretch factor. You probably know what I'm talking about right away, right? So when you start to eat, you notice how you start to feel things fill up, right? When your digestive area reaches a certain point, it fires off receptors to the brain, the stretch receptors that say, well, we've had enough. Okay, everyone with me so far? That makes sense? Some of us stop then, some of us just keep moving forward. But the point I want to make is I have 2 foods here just to illustrate this. I have a block of cheese and an apple. And I have the same equivalent amount of these in weight. This is a pound of apples and a pound of cheese. And they take up about the same amount of space. Now let me ask you, just to simplify the lesson, just considering those two foods, if you were to eat to stretch factor with one of those, which do you think would make it more likely for you to reach or overshoot your calorie requirement for the day than the other? All right, that's pretty graphic, isn't it? All right. Another reason that we reach fullness or satiety is because of weight. And it's not your weight, no one's going to weigh in tonight, don't worry. But the research tells us that every day we eat about the same amount of food in weight as every other day. So that means if yesterday you took all the food you ate and put it in a basket and weighed it, and then took all the food you weighed today and put it in a basket and weighed it, and then the next day, each day it would weigh about the same. So are you with me on that one? That makes sense? Okay, so let's take these same two foods. We have a pound of apple and a pound of cheese. Well, they weigh the same, right? Which of those do you think would be most likely to overshoot your calorie needs for the day by the time that you reach that weight factor? Okay, all right? And I know no one just eats cheese all day and that's all you ate, but it makes a point. Great. The other is nutrition. It is important to get a full balance of macro elements and also the antioxidants and all those food pieces that go together to give you good nutrition. This is why the cardboard and celery diet doesn't work. You might get stretched, you might get the weight of the food, but you're going to be calorie deprived, and that's no way to go either. So those three rules, you see how whole plant foods in a variety of ways would meet that need. So once I kind of figured that out, I thought, well, maybe this is a solution to a weight problem. Maybe some of us just need to be more careful about eating processed foods or foods without fiber, which is all plant foods, by the way. There's no fiber in any plant food. So you're already at a deficit for getting some fiber in for the day. So that's, here's just another illustration. This one's really graphic. Yes?
You said there was no fiber in plant food. I think
Oh, animal food. Thank you. What is your name? Heather, thank you. Heather is listening to me. Now, I'm not going to make up the story about how I slipped that in to see who was listening, but it gives us a chance to reteach the yes, all animal food has no fiber. Thank you very much, Heather. So just to finish up this point, because this is a good takeaway for you. Do you see why it might be, if you cut back or eliminated vegetable oil from your diet, that it might help you in this factor with the three rules? If you look at this, we have olive oil, a tablespoon has like 120 calories, no fiber, it's just all fat. It's just all fat. And, or you could have like, there's a couple olives for the same amount of calories, but you get the stretch and the weight. And you get the fiber, you get it all going on. So this could be this was a big shift for me. It made it really possible for me to shed some weight more easily when I got it about, well, oil, that's a highly processed food, that it's just fat. So, and there's so many whole plant foods, there's nuts and seeds and avocado and olives and plenty of things that can give you those fats, but in a whole way so you've got the fiber. Basically, we are biologically driven to satisfy our urge for a full belly because our bellies were designed to be satisfied with real whole food that's full of fiber. So I call it my big plate trick. You know the small plate trick where you're supposed to get a little plate and pretend that you're not. You know what I'm talking about? You guys know the small? Do you know that I read an article once about someone said my dog is overweight. What am I going to do about my dog? And the vet said, give it a smaller bowl. Doesn't that just make it all? I'm sure my dog will walk away now. I ate all that food. I must be, you know. So this is another one of the beauties of a whole food plant-based diet is you just get to, I'm always telling my husband, Greg, honey, we just got to get bigger plates because I'll load up the vegetables on one side and it's got potatoes or greens coming over here and some wonderful enchilada or beans and it's like, you know, it's spilling off the plate. So you get to eat lots, mountains of food, and that's a delight to to those of us who like to eat like me. I'm a lazy cook, but I love to eat. So don't get the idea that I'm a fancy cook. I'm lazy. And I tell you all about that in the book. Because my recipes are so simple. All right, so once you've gotten the scout stage, you know what's on the plate, you know what to move off the plate, you've gotten the basics about why this can be beneficial to your health. It's not just weight, there's also heart disease, there's cardiovascular disease. Do you know that the leading causes of death and disease in our country are lifestyle generated, largely due to nutrition, which means, guess what? You can eat your way out of them. As we eat our way into them, we can in large part eat our way out of them. And then you prepare your kitchen, you get that ready, and you start to planify your food. So I give you lots of ideas in the book about that, and I've got a little video coming up. I'm going to show that more too. So at the rookie stage, now that you know what to do, now the fun part. You're going to start eating, right? You're prepared. You know what you should be getting at the market, making your shopping list. So the rookie stage is when you step up to the plate, you start eating, you start making meals, and you don't have to be a fancy cook. You just learn how to throw things together in a new way. You learn how to make foods that you already love, more plant heavy, as opposed to animal product or processed food heavy. I don't think you have to, it's good to tell people you have to drop everything you've been doing. We all have our favorite flavors, right? You can start incorporating more plant foods for favorite flavors. And this is what we're going to talk about in the rookie stage before we get to the video. Yes, that's a high five carrot. Don't you love that? Yeah. First thing you have to do is you have to set your pace. And then I'm wondering what people in here think. If you're going to make a change like this, or if you already have done so, I want to know your opinion. Do you think that you should jump in overnight? Do you rip off the Band-Aid, as they say, cold turkey, maybe a poor choice of words, but far concerning on subject matter? Or do you think over time, making changes over time is a good way to go? Think about it for a minute. It looks like we have a little bit of each. Who thinks overnight? Just change overnight. Who thinks over time? Who didn't want to raise their hand? I understand. Remember, I'm a teacher. I know people just sometimes they don't want to participate. What? Yeah, it is important, and that's exactly it. What is your name? Betty. See, Betty and Heather, and look at all these assistants I've got tonight. Thank you. And I didn't get your name. Esperanza. Thank you very much. I asked the people in the survey this question. I was curious. What are they going to say is the best way from their experience or what they think? And here's how it came out. Between overnight and overtime, it was just about an even split. And I have all the survey results were reported in the plant-based journey. But here's where it gets interesting. Okay, so I asked the questions on the survey, but I also gave lots of opportunity for elaborating, tell me more of your story, what do you think? At least half of the people who said overnight, just do it, started to tell me more about their journey. I said, well, tell me about that. How'd you do it? And oftentimes I'd see, well, I tried this. This was really hard for a while. So first I did this, and then I did this. And so in their mind, it was like overnight, but it was a little overnight over time. And so it turns out there are three primary ways that sustainable success has gone forward in terms of pacing. One is the overnight. The Camerons did that. They saw forks overnight, did a couple other things, and cleaned out the pantry. They even have a farm in New Zealand that they were raising animals, and they completely overhauled that, but their family diet changed in 24 hours. Another way is to go one step at a time, where you go like meal by meal. Some people start with breakfast, let's make breakfast all plant-based. And then we'll add on lunch after a week or two, and then we'll make dinner, so we're eating more and more plant-based. Some people here are probably already starting with meatless Mondays, so that can progress to meatless most days. That's just, or meatless all day, that's just another progression. And then there is also just one step at a time, whether you take one animal at a time, or something like that, and move it out of your one processed food at a time. But guess what? No matter which one of those that you are taking or that people take, they all still have to go through the 5 steps. You can't become awakened without going to the idea without figuring out what you're going to do in your kitchen, what you're going to buy at the market. See what I'm saying? It seems like really obvious. As you go through the book, you'll say like, well, yeah, of course. But I'll tell you what, the plant-based journey has been, it just got adopted by a publisher in Russia. It's going to be published in Russia. Isn't that exciting? I think it's pretty cool. I can't wait to see what the cover looks like, symbols and lines. And it's already in its second printing, and it's only came out in September, and I'm very pleased about this. But even more than that, I'm getting letters each week from doctors and dietitians around the country who said, you know, I have been looking for a long time to find a guide that I could give to my patients and my clients that would help them understand how to move along. Because let's face it, some of the literature out there is pretty daunting. You know, it's like, there isn't an invitation, there isn't a positive approach. But the plant-based journey, that's where it stands out in the crowd because, as I will tell you again, I'm a teacher. So I am trained and practiced in taking what could be a complex problem or challenge and figuring out how to break it into bits so that the student, which is all of us, could achieve in a progressive fashion moving forward. Does that make sense? So, and I think that's probably why the Russians picked it up too, but I don't know for sure. So the thing is to plant yourself. That means start getting more plant foods into your kitchen and plantify your plate. So I'm going to run this video now. Has anyone seen the, it's only, what, 5 minutes, 4 minutes? Who's been catching Good Day Sacramento? Does anybody watch that? Well, do you know about Channel 31? It's CBS. It's in, in Sacramento here. Maybe you've heard of the show. But they got a hold of the copy of The Plant-Based Journey when it came out, and the producer there loves the book. So they said, well, why don't you come in and show us a little bit about your 5 fast ways to plantify your plate, which is one of the sections in the book. So I said, okay, And now I've been on 5 times. I was there last Monday. I came in and I had Dr. Michael Greger in, who just wrote the new New York Times bestseller, How Not to Die. And did anybody hear of that book? But I heard he was going to be in town, and I shot him up, hey Michael, I can pitch this idea to the show, you coming with me? He was all over it, and the station loved it. And by the way, it's on my website. You can see the replay of the video. But I've been doing every month something new on plant-based. So I thought it'd be fun to show you the first one, because since I don't have a display in front of me, you'll see ideas that I give to people that are in the book for how to plantify your plate. Want to do that? Okay. So, how do we figure out how to do this? Oh, I know, it was this. Okay. There it is. Okay, and then I'm going to pop over to...
Could teach you strategies for adding greens to your meals.
Can you see it?
Probably not going to work out. Welcome back. And the last time you were here, you played around with us. We did some quickie exercises. Yes, we did. We worked on fit quickies, and everyone was such good spirits. I'm so happy to be back here because you guys are so much fun. Well, welcome back, because you always have good stuff. So aside from us eating cereal and pancakes today, you are going to tell us about this cool book, Plant-Based Journey, Plantify Our Plates. Yes, quick tips for how to plantify your plates with kids. No matter where you are on the food continuum, everyone knows we need to get more vegetables and also foods in our diets. So I like to start people there. Whether you're real experienced with doing that, there's a quick, easy way, or brand new, there's easy ways to get more plants in your plate, all right? So I have a few examples here. First, what I wanted to tell you is I'm a very lazy kinds of things. Then you can do the same thing with pasta. Cook up pasta, and notice I cleverly did part white pasta, part whole wheat, because it's how I find it there. You see, if people are trying to whole grain, right now, I don't like whole grains. We'll do half and half for a while. Change your taste slowly, and you can fold it in spinach and olives to this.
Okay, now this is going to be my favorite one, the bulgur wheat. I know a lot of people have heard of bulgur wheat, some people have not, but the
Bulgur wheat,
people know
would you say bulgur?
In this bowl of chili, this is actually called Game Changer Chili, and this recipe is in the plant-based journey. Most of my ideas in the book are templates, which are just ideas like this, throw things together. In this, everyone loves chili, right? It's not a universal. And I have done the same thing. I've cooked the chili and then folded in some spinach. And then, if you're trying to move out the animal products and move out the meat, I have replaced what might be ground beef in here with some bulgur wheat. So
it looks like short grain bread.
yeah, it does. It does. But it has a really good nutty taste. So I just cooked that into it. This took 3 minutes to cook in the pressure cooker, and then I folded in kidney beans. So yeah, here's some bulgur wheat fries Doris put in. Yeah.
Okay, now tell me about these muffins, because we like little things that are quick, grab it, and go.
Yeah, all right, here, this is plenty, who does cornbread, the bread match for the chili. What I have done is I've plantified cornbread by just chopping up peppers, green, yellow, orange, red. I put in whole corn, here are the peppers. I'll put big cans of We all know the benefits of having more plant foods in our diet, so lots of ideas, lots of ways to go.
And put this in the plate, because take a look at her picture. This is Lani's picture, a little before and after. Now, do you mind if I let our friends know your age range?
Not at all. You can do my exact,
Your exact age, 63?
63.
No, we're going to do that.
Right, so well, let me tell you, this is the difference, and I was a vegetarian in this earlier shot.
Yeah.
But when you think of incorporating more of the whole foods and moving to even processed things, then you have a whole different way of satisfying your hunger, so you can be full without being fat. Who doesn't want that, right?
We love that. We love that. Listen, her book has been #1 since July. For newbie books coming out, especially in the vegetarian category, with people behind her that are ready to forward and stuff. Very influential people. They know what they're talking about, so if they like it, push it like it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Too much fun.
Yeah, I forgot.
Another thing. Yeah, I brought dessert for everyone here. Yay! I got chocolate cherry truffles for past crew and everyone. Yes. I got they have all of the meal in the
See, I like going there, just getting a rise. Okay, you want to hear the fruit loop story?
Yes.
Let me redo this. Okay. I just want to do that because you can just see, you can toss things in. And we were having the conversation about gluten. So if you don't want to use the bulgur wheat, that quinoa is another really good replacement for. The idea is if you think about beef and meaty texture, you can find lots of ways to get that same idea. As a matter of fact, the last segment I did at Good Day Sacramento was called Meaty Vegan Eats, where we made beefless beef stew, and there's so many options, really delicious options for you. But here's the Fruit Loop story, and she referred to this earlier on. Earlier in the show, here was the segment. The person was making pancakes with your child's favorite breakfast cereal. So they had Fruit Loops and sugar snacks and Cap'n Crunch and put it in pancake batter and cook it. And while they were making it, they were going, we have someone talking about healthy foods later on. I wonder what she's going to think about this. So because I like to play along and be a team member, I said, let's just put Fruit Loops back on the table so I can tease Ken about it, the anchor there. And they're just really good sports. So we have a lot of fun. And one of the things, if you are eating more plant foods and you're feeling a little resistance from people around you or your friends or family, humor goes a long way, just like with everything else. So another thing thing to do is create systems, and one way to create a system is to figure out your meals. You know, sometimes people come, like I said earlier, I just eat from a variety of light foods and you'll be fine. Well, if we're used to this, you know, meat and starch main dish and then a vegetable and a fruit, that's how my mom cooked. That was her framework. She was really meticulous about making sure we got everything at each meal. And for many of us, and did anybody else grow up with that framework, you know, that's how your mom cooked? And it's a big, instead of having to eliminate, you can just plantify that. So now, instead of chicken and rice, you have bean enchilada or tacos or anything that has a combination of whole grains or starchy vegetables and beans, which is a heavier protein plant food. That becomes one dish at your meal. Then you prepare your vegetables and you get your fruit either at meal or between. And after you've been doing that for a while, the whole thing tends to relax and loosen up and you start enjoying so many different kinds of foods. But I really want to make it clear that there is a pragmatic way to do this. If you're looking for a structure, I provide it for you. Another way I like to look at it, I call this the end of the day meal plan. This is kind of my meal planner. I figure if I look back at after the day's over and I took all the food I ate and piled it on a big plate, about half of it would be filled with whole grains and starchy vegetables and potatoes and yams and all of that, and the other half would be fresh vegetables and cooked and raw in a variety of ways, and there'd be, over on the starchy side, I'd have maybe a cup or more of beans, and there'd be some nuts or seeds on top. So it's all there, but it's kind of, it doesn't have to be so exacting. Then what you have after that's what we just did. Once you have gone through the rookie stage, you've gotten good at home. Okay, many of us have been through this where, you know, I'm really good when I'm in my controlled environment, I can make it work there. But then what do you do when you go to the workplace, when you're traveling, when you take it on the road? What about restaurants? And I address those all in the plant-based journey, so lots of details for you. What about family, friends, and food pushers? I actually have some really good contributions from families who have, the entire family has been through this plant-based transition together, and I've had them tell exactly how they manage this with their kids, their tweens, their teens, their younger kids, and then I even had some teens write some passages for me. How did they deal with the social pressures? How did they deal with the changes? You know, how did it all come about? And as a teacher, again, I find the best way to learn is through modeling. So this way you get some model behaviors and give you some real insights about how to make this work beyond the borders of their home. And the last step is called champion. And that may sound like it's the tallest order and the biggest challenge and have the most guidelines on it. But actually, this is the shortest chapter in the book. Because the champion stage is simply practicing what you have been doing and sharpening your skills. And I'd like to call it practices instead of habits, because a practice is what you do over and over again, which becomes a habit. So if you think of it in terms of practicing instead of a habit, that's how you build a new practice. And is anyone here do martial arts or have a child or relative who's done martial arts?
Oh, Tai Chi.
Tai Chi, okay. So you're familiar with Tai Chi then. What do they call, the sensei or the master, who's the teacher? Well, we've probably all heard of this in judo or in martial arts. The sensei or the great master who is teaching to the others and helping them progress through their colors of belts. When the sensei or the master is going to the studio to do their teaching or to do their work, what do they say they're going there to do? They're going there to practice. So no matter where we are on this stage, we're always practicing to get better and better. And the next part of the book, I could not leave this out. I call this the key supporting players. Once you've got the food in place, remember the 3 pillars I talked about earlier? I talked about that there's the food and the fitness and the frame of mind. So I address the fitness and the frame of mind also in the book after the food chapter because they support lifestyle change. And I'm going to explain how exercise does this in a way that you may never have thought of before. But before we do that, we're going to do an example of it. So yes, you cannot have a kinesiologist in your presence without expecting that you're going to get up and move just a little bit. Nothing fancy. I just want you to get up on your feet, please. And if you can't stand, you can do this seated. That's fine too. Perfect. Okay. Oh, doesn't that feel good? All right. Now what I'd like you to do is nothing fancy. I want you to put your heels together and turn your toes out, kind of like, okay, the ballerina tells first position. But you want to have like for those who aren't in the dance world, it's just like a 45-degree angle at your heels. Now what I'd like you to do is pull your belly in. Do you know how to do that? Just contract the abdomen a little bit. Squeeze the backyard just a little bit so you're bringing your pelvis into alignment, taking pressure off your back. Elevate the rib cage straight up from the hips. Roll the shoulders back. So you can do this even without seeing me. I'm just giving instructions. And then push the top of your head to the ceiling. So now you have perfect posture, right? All right, now what I'd like you to do is lock your legs completely straight so that you feel all the muscles in your legs contracting. Up the back side and up the front side. Now don't make me come and test, okay? All right, are you tight back there? Now what I want you to do is just start tapping your heels. Just tap your heels. Up and down, just a tiny lift. The legs stay straight, the knees stay locked, your belly stays in. Where to go? Did it go out? Okay. Bring it back in. Keep the backyard tight. Keep the upper body lift. We're going to do 10 more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Take a nice deep breath. Now we're going to come up for dancers. It's going to be a releve. For the rest of us, it's going to be up to the toes, down to the heels. Up to the toes, down to the heels. Your legs are still straight. Your belly's still in. Your back arm's still tight. Your shoulders are back. Head to the ceiling. Now do 4 quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, soften your knees and take a seat, and thank you very much. Beautifully done. Perfect time for this break in the program. Don't you feel, now honestly, don't you feel a little bit refreshed, energized? It's a universal. When we move our body, we start moving, we just feel better, physically and mentally. Now what's happened, and I address this a lot in the Fit Quickies book, is there's this problem that's overtaken our computer culture and our car culture. It's called sedentarism. It's called what they say, sitting is the new smoking or something. But for every hour that you sit in a seated position where you've taken the circulation out of your body, your disease biomarkers elevate stratospherically. And I always suggest people, if you're at a desk job, every 45 minutes to an hour, get up and do something for 5 to 10 minutes. That's kind of the concept of Fit Quickies, how to pepper in exercise throughout the day, for a couple of reasons. When you are seated, like I said, these disease factors accelerate, even if, what if you say, yeah, but I do an hour and a half workout every night at the gym. I can sit all day. The research shows us that even if we are getting in our hour and a half workout, if we're sitting all day, our disease biomarkers, elevated cholesterol, triglycerides, glucose sensitivity, elevate just as much as for someone who doesn't exercise at all. That's not fair, isn't it? But it's true. It's called like active couch potato. I mean, you're getting your activity, but you still got all these symptoms of the couch potato. But to bring this back to the plant-based journey, the reason I addressed exercise in the plant-based journey is because, though most of us, when we think of exercise, we think of getting stronger muscles, stronger heart, maybe getting a bigger figure, maybe, relieving some stress. And physical exercise does all those things beautifully. But it misses the lead on the real benefit of physical activity. Any idea? Who said that? One of my love, what's your name?
Bill.
Bill. Because of what it does for your brain. This is what happens. The minute that you, the minute that you start to put one foot in front of the other, or even in place like you just did, there is this hormonal cascade that starts to take place in your body. You may have heard of a surge in endorphins and melatonin and serotonin, all those things. So I'm not going to get into all the science of that. It's enough knowing that starts to be released. And what you may not know is that there's a protein in your brain called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Neurotrophic, what does that mean? It makes new neurons, makes new connections. That hormonal surge in your body mixes with the BDNF in your brain and starts the process for you to be able to learn more and better and quicker. And you think there's any connection between that and making a lifestyle change? Big connection. Exercise just builds better brain connections and neuroplasticity. You've probably heard of that. It's like the neurons are plastic. They can find a new way to do things. So here's how I look at it. If your feet are stuck in cement, your brain is probably stuck in cement. So for those people that say, well, I don't know if I should do exercise or diet to get healthier first. What should I do? And some people advise, well, just stick to the diet, worry about the exercise later. What do you think I answer that with? Move your body. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half slam at the gym. Just go out and move for 20 minutes. Get up every hour and move for 5. And you encourage your body and your brain to make healthier lifestyle choices. So the next component, the third pillar, is mastering strength of mind. Is he cooperating? Oh, good. Isn't that nice? You like my graphic? There is definitely an inner component that goes with lifestyle change that is partly connected with physical activity. Do you know that physical exercise restores your willpower because it restores the command center of your brain, your prefrontal cortex? Exercise does that in 3 to 5 minutes. It's been shown. Oh, do you think there's a connection between we're talking about 3 to 5 minutes? These things restore those centers of your brain that help you make the better choice. That's what command center means, like I have some command. So it's very important to keep those elements alive and to realize that they are important. Stress reduction, finding some kind of mindfulness or meditation activity, whether you're doing a body-mind connection like a yoga or some Tai Chi someone mentioned, these are all very beneficial for helping you be more mindful of being in the moment and reducing stress. And another thing I address all throughout the plant-based journey, and I go into them in depth in this chapter about a mastering mindset, and that's 4 simple steps for making change. And I want to go through these just really quickly because maybe you'll recognize a step that is something that you could brush up on a little bit that might make a difference. One is becoming aware. First you have to become aware if there's a problem or a habit that you want to change. That's obvious, right? But people overlook that as an important step. You kind of have to identify it. Then you set your intention. And then your intention has to be really specific. Like sometimes people will call me up and they'll go, I'm just really struggling here. I go, what do you want to achieve? And they go, I just want to be healthy. And I go, what does that mean? What does that look like? How does it show up in your life? Is that something you can play with your children or grandchildren? Is it so you can run for the light flight in the airport without, dying on the way? Is it so you can carry your groceries? So find out why it is important for you to have that. Not just because someone told you you should, but what is your connection to making that change? Because that is the bottom line. That's like step 1, right? The awakening. What's your connection with why it's going to happen? Then you set your intention, which means, you identify micro changes. This is where a lot of people don't see the value of making small changes over time for a big result. I see this over and over again. I have multiple examples of this from modeling in the plant-based journey. Let me give you an example. Nicole was one of my clients, and she was a little overweight. She was lacking in energy. She wanted to get more exercise in. She wanted to improve her diet, and she had 3 kids. She was walking them to school every day, and you think with 3 kids you're getting all the exercise you need, right? But it wasn't giving her what she needed. The school was only a few blocks away, and she would just get home and not do her exercise. She felt stuck. So we worked on this together to find what was the smallest thing she could do to get her closer to where she wanted to be, which was to be a more active person, get some stronger muscles so that she could be more lively with her children and with her family life. That was her specific. You know what we did? Nicole found out that when she put her yoga pants on, it made her feel like an active person. So her first micro change was in the morning before she walked the kids to school. She put on her yoga pants. And believe it or not, this inspired her to continue for doing 10 more minutes of walking after she dropped the kids off. You know how those pants can feel? Like you feel all warm? You recognize what I'm talking about? And then she got home and she did some other exercises, but that was the first thing that she did. And then she built on other kinds of exercises and got a really good system going, lost the weight, but more importantly, what she wanted was to feel more energetic and strong around her kids. And another really clear example, this is also exercise related. I am meaning food related. micro changes in the book too. Sandra called me. Sandra weighed 300 pounds. She said, I know I need to change my diet. I know I need to exercise, but it hurts to move. I don't know what to do. So I said, well, Sandra, can you stand? She goes, yeah, I can stand. Not that she was doing much of it. She was, pretty prone. And I said, well, how about today you start by standing for 5 minutes? Can you do that? Okay. So Sandra started by standing for 5 minutes a day. Pretty soon it progressed to 10. By the end of the month, she was walking 30 minutes a day, and she's lost 100 pounds. And it all started because she didn't guffaw at my suggestion to, let's just start by standing for 5 minutes. She couldn't do that. Anything else in that was painful for her. You see how you can build. You just have to keep the challenge. You want to reach that's a little bit beyond what's easy for you, but you build upon that. And then you just practice, just like all the other steps. So when it comes to the mindset, under the surface there are some hidden obstacles. Sometimes it's lack of motivational clarity, or there's some kind of internal resistance. And in the interest of time, this is a whole subject area, but I do want you to know I think it's important, and that's why I address it in the plant-based journal. And what I have to close here for you is I have some pictures that bloggers, there was a big blog tour, all these bloggers bought the book and they say, oh, make your recipes kind of like happen here. This is a portobello pot roast. If you don't think, can't you smell that? I did not make this, as a blogger made it. She took a picture and I said, can I put it in my slideshow? And she said, yes, it's just portobello mushrooms and this really meaty sauce, very easy to make. The Game Changer chili, you had some of that tonight. You had some of the pumpkin muffins. These are always, always a hit. Very good. Like I said, there's no sugar or oil in them, but they're very robust and sweet. Oh, here you saw those. I had to put the Fruit Loops in there so you can see that. And yes, the chocolate cherry truffles are also in the book. This is just dried cherries and walnuts and coconut and just really delicious dessert food. I make a good enchilada pie, and believe it or not, I have a recipe for mandarin chocolate ice cream. That is simply, maybe you've made frozen banana ice cream before, but I put cocoa in it and some orange flavoring, and boy, is that good. So here's the idea: more whole plant foods and less of everything else. And finally, here's a long quote, but this speaks to the heart. Restore your birthright, the pure joy of eating. Food is meant to be relished with gusto, free of overstructured artifice, bodily discomfort, disease, cognitive dissonance, and a looming threat of weight gain. Yes? So that's it. I want to thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. If you have any questions, as a teacher, that's really how I like to operate. If there's something on your mind, and I can answer it, then good. And if not, I can usually direct you to a place to find the answer. So what's on your mind? And I do have books to the side if anyone wants to go see. Yes?
What about organic? Are you recommending organic?
I do. I buy organic whenever I can because I think it's the most helpful for our bodies and for the planet. At the same time, you know what? I have people who will not start eating more broccoli because they think they have to drive across town to get the organic thing that was grown locally and picked yesterday. And they get so caught in that they just start eating broccoli. So yes, it's a good place to go, but it doesn't have to be a place for you to get started. Great question. Thank you. Yes?
Do you call yourself a vegan?
Yes, I do. Yes, because plant-based can mean that your food is predominantly whole food plant-based. But for me, it has really become, 100% is like plant exclusive because and let me ask you, if you can eat in such a way that fills you up, that is perfectly delicious and doesn't cause harm to other beings or the planet, why wouldn't you eat that way? So that's kind of where I am.
What about fish? You don't eat fish at all?
Who's saying that?
I don't know.
No, I do not eat fish, and I gotta tell you, I'm a scuba diver, and those guys are my friends. So when I'm under the water, I don't think I could dive into them. Nope.
What about oil?
Hi.
And what kind of oil do you use?
Yes. Well, as I described in the show, When I discovered the impact that oils had on me calorically since I was struggling with my weight, and I also learned about even vegetable, you know that olive oil is 14% saturated fat? That even oils contribute to inflammation in the circulatory system and heart disease. I just moved them out and started using whole foods. So like my salad dressings are whole seeds and fruit juices and, blended in. So I don't use vegetable oil in my cooking. And I show you how to do that in the plant-based journey. I show you how to, people are using to sauteing with oil, but I have templates in the book. I have several templates which have been the runaway hit of this book. I simply you take this vegetable, you take like vegetable broth, and you take some seasonings and you cook it together in the pan. You can do it all without oil and wonderfully flavored. So I have several of those templates, and I tell you what, when I was talking to the publisher and I was getting the book plan, and my publisher goes, those templates, they just look like a really good idea. And I said, oh, that's just how I cook. I told you I'm lazy, put these things together. So it's really a relief, because many people will come to this way of eating and load up on the cookbooks and just, can't do it. It doesn't need to be complex, but it can be. And it's just it tastes good. Is that a hint? Okay, yes.
I'm vegetarian and I'm always worried about getting protein.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yes, and I address this in the plant-based journey too. I have a whole section in the back for the calcium and the protein questions. And I never tire of the question because I always see it as a moment to teach too. The question was about getting enough protein on a plant-based diet. What you'll see is I even give the example in the back of the book where I went and I got the recommended daily requirement for grams of protein for my size and weight. And I laid out here, I'll show you, I measured out, which I don't do, I don't weigh and measure, that was one of the beauties of this lifestyle, but I did for the sake of the project. Beans, rice, bread, greens, broccoli, nuts and seeds, everything, and I overshot my recommended daily requirement for protein just from eating a very plant-based diet. So we have really been sold a bill of goods with the marketing industry. Let's face it, there's no broccoli council. There's nobody standing up for the Brussels sprouts saying, yay, there's a lot of meat and there's subsidies and a lot of money and everything in the meat and dairy and animal product industries because there's a profit there. And in the food supplements, how many of those are protein oriented? You think they make a buck off those? And we've been so conditioned to this. We walk into a market, and if it says high in protein, I'm putting that in my car. Who doesn't want that? So I hope I've answered your question, and you could even do that. If you're concerned yourself, you could even look at your own food for the course of a day and do just what I did. Just do a calculator. There's online calculators and see where you're measuring up in terms of protein. But there's something else I want to address right here too, and I also address this in the book. And that is that there is a health danger to our bodies with excessive animal protein. Whether it's from beef, chicken, fish, eggs, milk, cheese, any of those things. When you ingest these plant proteins, animal proteins, thank you, where Heather? Heather's she's on my shoulder. Animal proteins, it stimulates what's called IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor. That stimulates the growth of cells. So as children have a lot of IGF-1 because, they need a lot of cell growth, right? They're growing. But when you're an adult, can you think of any kind of cells you might not want to proliferate? And yes, and there's a direct correlation between proliferation of cancer cells and IGF-1 related to high animal protein diet. Plant protein does not do it. Over and over again, it's been shown. So you can overdo on your beans and your wheat germ or any of those things that will not have that same effect. And reduced IGF-1 is directly correlated to longevity and reduction of disease. So, like I said, I really hit that hard in the book because I think it's important. I don't want to just say you don't need that much protein. I'm going to show you how it's dangerous to have too much. Yes?
Once upon a time, there was this idea that if you ate plant protein, you had to combine, the amino acids
Yes.
in the rice.
Yes.
So
Yes, she's exactly right. Yeah, and you know what? Even Francis Morningpay, who wrote Diet for a New Planet, maybe you saw that. Because at the time, she was really trying to match those things. And we've now discovered that all plant foods, by the way, are complete proteins.
Good.
They have all amino acids. I explain this very carefully. This is great for you when you're telling your friends and families and relatives. I explain it. That everything that you eat, like all that food on the back table there, it's a pool of amino acids that builds up in your body. And proteins are simply a gathering of amino acids into packaging in your body. And your body has the wisdom to go and grab those amino acids and build whatever it needs. So you cannot be protein deficient unless I think you're just eating fruit for weeks on end or something. Yeah, so you, did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Good. That's such a good question because it was really out there for a while and it kind of hurt the, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Could you comment about restaurant eating? We're so social in this society.
I know, and I do have a big section in the plant-based journey for that too. And I even mentioned some of the fast food places, some of the options that you can get at those places.
What?
Yeah, like if you go into Olive Garden and then you can get the minestrone soup, which is all vegan. It might have a little bit of oil in it, but when I go in there and I'll just eat it with a fork and you get beans and vegetables and everything. Big salad, with Olive Garden, fabulous. We go through like 4 bowls. And I just get vinegar on the side and put that on it. So all you have to do is, here's what I do for restaurants. And I travel a lot. I've been on Africa safari for weeks at a time and did this there. So you can do it anywhere. You find out where you're going to be. You look up online what the recipe is. And you can call the restaurant, find out what the options are that you could have. And you find your way through it that way. And you start to recognize things. Most places will have a salad and baked potatoes, so you can get those. And it may not be the best meal that you picked at home, but you can still do that. Does that help a little bit? Yeah, the social issue is a real important question, because some people are very social and going out, every meal. But check out your favorite restaurants, see what they've got. Here's what I did what is that restaurant in Ridley? It's a Mexican restaurant. Somebody help me out. Casa Lupe. Thank you very much. Now, one time, Greg and I were going to go walk through Gray Lodge and look at the birds. And we thought, let's get a Casa Lupe. So I called them up. I said, what do you have for beans? Because a lot of these places, they cook their beans in lard. They said, we have 2. This is good for you if you ever want to go to Casa Lupe, by the way. They said, this is a good example for you. They said, we have 2 pots of beans. One that's cooked in the lard, and then we have boiled beans, just in water. I thought, okay. I was all set, because here's what we did. We went there. I ordered the boiled beans. I ordered a whole basket of the soft tacos, which are not fried. They're just steamed tortillas. Thank you. You guys are so good. Thanks for having such a smart group come in tonight and really help me out with the program. I got the salad and I got salsa. And I made one after another of roll-ups with the beans and the vegetables and salsa on top. And I got lemon and squeeze on it. It was delicious. So we've gone there a few times. That's a real good way to work around. Thank you. Perfect example.
No cheese enchiladas.
Not if you're trying to get, work out of the cheese, but I'll tell you, there's so many good things that happened to my body when I ended up ditching the dairy products. And it took me a long time on that. That was the last thing to go for me. Because I told you I was a vegetarian for a long time. I wasn't eating any animal products or eggs except for dairy products. So it took me a while till I was one of those overtime, people. So the more I learned, the more it made sense.
Can I ask about
Please.
egg whites?
Yeah.
We all know that the yolks are pure cholesterol. But egg whites, what is it?
It's pretty much pure protein.
Pure protein.
Yeah, it's what the developing chick will eat to grow fast. So
they're bad.
Well, they're good for baby chickens.
How about for an old man?
Well, let me ask, what would be your reason for eating egg whites? Like, how do you like to eat them?
For breakfast, and I'll order egg whites and fruit or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Scrambled.
Yeah, so they're scrambled, are they mixed with anything?
No.
So it's just like a white thing?
Well, you can use, instead of egg whites, you can use egg beaters.
Yeah.
Put a dye in there.
Yeah.
It look like.
So are you doing that because you like that, or is there another reason
It seems like a
behind
good
that?
thing for breakfast. Maybe
So they
some
can,
toast.
yeah, well, what I would do is if you were interested in moving toward more plant-based, that that you find alternatives or replacements for that. There is actually, it's kind of like a crepe, right? Like a egg white omelet, those kind of things. You can make phenomenal duplications of that out of chickpea flour, garbanzo flour, and it tastes just like a. Have you done that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, get your recipe from her. So, it has to be a matter of it depends on what you want. If you're interested in moving out the plant, animal products, I'm doing that all the time, animal products because of either for the high protein risk for health, or because of what's happening in the egg industry, or because of the environmental concern, then there are delicious, wonderful replacements that you can do. Did I answer a question for you, or?
I'll take that to Don's Diner here in town.
What did you say?
Don's Diner.
Oh, Don's Diner.
Yeah, Don's Diner.
Oh, we need to enlighten Don's menu, huh? Should we all go out together after the show?
Do they have Tofu Scramble? That's the.
At Don's? At Don's, that's right. Yeah, maybe someday. I don't know, Woodland, you guys are kind of an enlightened community, if you ask me, to have a program like this. So she was talking about Tofu Scramble, which is another delicious way to go. You know, my favorite breakfast is I'm cooking whole grains now, not just oatmeal. I'm cooking whole, like, oat groats and making a big pot, and then I throw cherries in. It's like cherry pie for breakfast. I get these frozen cherries and put them in. Interesting, you and they have raisin toast with almond butter and raspberry jam, and it's just, I feel like I'm eating like a queen. Anyway, so you'll have to make your own decision about, I hope I gave you some ideas about why someone might not want to eat those things, and you have to decide if you want to move away from that, and there are plenty of replacements. Anything else? Yeah.
What is your take on nutritional yeast seasoning?
What is my take on nutritional yeast? Yeah, take in what way?
Like, do you recommend it as a good, the vitamin Bs?
Yeah, I do. I use a lot. Do you use a lot of nutritional yeast?
On the kale chips.
Oh, did you bring some? More for everyone. Nutritional yeast, if you're not familiar with, it's kind of like a cheesy flaked product that is, I use Red Star yeast because it's got vitamin B12 in it. And if you're not eating animal foods, vitamin B12 is an important supplement for you. So you'll get it in the nutritional yeast. Just last night I made mac and cheese with a sauce that I made using tapioca flour, nutritional yeast, some other seasoning ingredients, and I put it over pasta, and it was just like, you know, mac and cheese. So, yes, I use it. Do you like it?
Yes, I do. I just wasn't sure, is that considered processed or, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's really more condiment and flavoring, so that's how I look at it. You know, I figure if only 5% of your diet is a little bit of brown sugar on your oatmeal, so it's better for you, that doesn't matter. It's when we're pounding down 50% of our calories, or if, like most Americans, 90% of our calories come from processed foods and animal products. That means there's a little window of 10% where only one of us, apparently, or 1% of us, is getting our vegetables in it, besides a French fry. And it's pretty, I know everyone in here is, you know, exemplary. So we're talking about those other people that know better than we do. So yeah, I think it's a matter of degree on that. Yeah, thank you. Good question. Excellent questions. Did you plan this in advance? Did you have all, you know, writing your questions? Well, I know we've got come to the end of the time, and I do want to let you go, but if there's any last question, yes.
Yes, I apologize for still coming a little bit late. I'm a health educator, so I see
Oh.
patients at a clinic in rural Sparta. So I'm always talking about this.
Oh, you're saving the world.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm really just fascinated by this presentation. And because I came in late, I don't know what you spoke about soy protein. Sometimes it gets a bad rap because of high levels of estrogen production. So what is your take on soy?
Yeah, I think it's a really good food. And the reason it's gotten a bad rap is because so much of what we've seen in the marketplace is highly processed powders or highly processed foods that have become so extrapolated from their full fiber origins, which is an edamame bean, you know, a soybean. And tofu is mildly processed, but you still have so much good from the plant there. If you were allergic to soy, you would do just like if you were allergic to strawberries. You would stay away from that. But for most of us, a moderate amount of soy in our diet is beneficial and very helpful and not to worry about. Did that work for you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Nancy, how does that mesh with what you teach?
Well, I'm a physician assistant by training, but right now I'm solely seeing patients, trying to support them in making helpful lifestyle changes. And I'm always pushing the plant-based and they're looking
Yeah.
at steak.
Oh, well, I hope you pick up a copy of the book tonight, 'cause
I definitely.
that would be, and like I said, there are a lot of doctors have these in their waiting rooms now, so that patients, you know how long we wait?
Oh, my goodness.
Can we give them a bill? Anyway, now there's, something to help them along. These are plant-based doctors across the nation who are, yeah. And even, Turi Hagenberger, she's on the schedule upcoming. She's a nutritionist from Cosanas College. She'll be coming up in a few weeks. And she has adopted the plant-based journey in her program and has a recommended reading list on her nutrition courses where the students are going through in the college. So she loves it for the same reason. It's inclusive, it's positive, it shows you things you can do. Thanks, great, Chris. What's your name?
Laura Martinez.
Laura, thank you for your contribution. Well, again, thank you very much for your presence, for your